Someone disrespects you in front of people, and in that moment, you usually feel like you only have two options. You can explode, and now everyone thinks you're unstable, or you can stay silent and then spend the rest of the day replaying the moment in your head, thinking, why didn't I say something? And honestly, that feeling is brutal, because it's not just about the insult, it's about the feeling that someone crossed a line, and you let them walk away clean. But there is a third option, a calm one, a stronger one. The kind of response that does not start a fight, does not make you look bitter, does not make you look desperate, but it still makes people understand one thing very clearly. You cannot talk to me like that. So today, we're talking about how to deal with disrespect, not revenge, not drama, not fake alpha nonsense, just self-respect, social skills, and a quiet confidence to stand up for yourself without turning into the kind of person you don't even like. Here are 6 responses that can turn disrespect into respect. Response 1, ask them to clarify. The first response is simple. What exactly do you mean by that? That's it. No anger, no sarcasm, no emotional speech, just one calm question. Because here's the thing, people who disrespect you rarely say the full thing directly. They hide it inside a joke. They dress it up as just being honest. They say something sharp enough to hurt you, but vague enough to deny it later. You know the type. They say, wow, you're really confident for someone like you. Or, relax, I was just joking. No, you were not just joking. You were testing how much disrespect I would swallow before I finally looked up. So instead of attacking back, you ask, what exactly do you mean by that? Now they have a problem, because if they explain it honestly, they expose themselves. And if they backpedal, everyone can see it. That is why this response works. You are not fighting them. You are simply asking them to own their words. And for people who live off psychological manipulation, that is very uncomfortable, because manipulation works best in the dark. Clarity turns the lights on. And if you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, I should have said something, subscribe. This channel is for people learning how to stop being weak without becoming cruel. Response 2, name the behavior, not the person. The second response is, that sounded disrespectful, or that came across as dismissive. Notice something important. You are not saying you're a terrible person. You are not saying you're toxic. You are not attacking their entire identity. You are naming the behavior. That matters, because in modern Western culture, especially in workplaces, friend groups, classrooms, and relationships, people respond better when you criticize the behavior instead of labeling the person. If you say, you're rude, they can fight you. But if you say, that sounded disrespectful, now the focus is on what just happened. Not their childhood, not their personality, not some dramatic argument from 3 years ago, just the sentence they said 5 seconds ago. This is how to handle disrespect without turning it into a war. And yes, some people will still act offended. Let them. A person who benefits from your silence will always feel attacked by your clarity. But that does not mean you were wrong. Sometimes standing up for yourself is not about sounding powerful. Sometimes it is just about saying the obvious thing everyone else in the room was too uncomfortable to say. Response 3, set the boundary. The third response is, don't speak to me like that. Or softer, I'm open to talking, but not if I'm being spoken to that way. This is one of the most important lines in the entire video, because people often confuse kindness with availability. They think because you are calm, they can push. Because you are polite, they can test. Because you don't want drama, they can keep taking small pieces of your dignity. No. Being peaceful does not mean being available for disrespect. That is where boundaries come in. And a boundary is not a threat. A boundary is not you saying, do what I want or I'll punish you. A boundary is you saying, this is what I will not participate in. That is self-respect. That is confidence psychology. That is how to be grounded when someone is trying to pull you into their emotional mess. You do not need to shout. You do not need to win the whole room. You just need to make the line visible, because once the line is visible, the dynamic changes. Now they know, and knowing changes behavior. Response 4. Give a calm consequence. The fourth response is, if this keeps going this way, I'm going to step away from this conversation. Not dramatic, not loud, just clear. And here's the part most people miss. A consequence only works if you are actually willing to follow through. If you say it, and then stay there arguing for another 40 minutes, you just taught them your boundaries are decorative, nice to look at, not real. So if they keep interrupting, mocking, insulting, or twisting your words, you say, I'm not doing this if we can't keep it respectful. Then you leave. That is not weakness. That is emotional control. That is how to deal with rude people without giving them the emotional reaction they came looking for. Because some people do not want resolution. They want access to your anger, access to your insecurity, access to the version of you that loses control so they can point and say, see, you're the problem. Don't give them that gift. Sometimes the most powerful response is not the perfect comeback. Sometimes it is removing your energy from a conversation that no longer deserves it. And comment below which response you personally need the most right now. Not to look cool, but just be honest. Because almost everyone has one situation in their life where they already know, I need to stop letting this slide. Response 5, reclaim your space. The fifth response is for when someone cuts you off. You say, I hear you, let me finish my point. Or, I wasn't finished, let me complete what I was saying. Simple, but extremely powerful, because interruption is not always accidental. Sometimes it is a frame battle. They are trying to decide who gets space, who gets heard, who gets taken seriously. And if every time someone talks over you, you shrink back and smile awkwardly, people learn something. They learn your voice can be pushed out of the room. So don't yell over them. Don't fight for volume. Just return to your point. Same voice, same pace, same grounded energy. I hear you. Let me finish. That one line says, I'm not ignoring you, but I'm also not disappearing for you. This is one of the cleanest forms of how to stand up for yourself, because it does not require aggression. It requires presence. And presence is different from loudness. A loud person needs the room to react. A grounded person only needs to stay where they are. Response 6, address the pattern. The sixth response is for repeated disrespect. Not one weird comment, not one bad day, a pattern. You say, I've noticed this has happened more than once. Or, this isn't the first time you've spoken to me this way. This is a different level, because one comment can always be explained away. They can say, you're too sensitive. You misunderstood. I didn't mean it like that. Fine, maybe once, but when it keeps happening, you are not dealing with the moment anymore. You are dealing with a pattern. And when you name the pattern, you remove their favorite hiding place. Because people who keep disrespecting you in small ways depend on one thing. They depend on each moment looking too small to address. A joke here, a comment there, a little interruption, a little eye roll, a little calm down when you were already calm. Tiny things. But over time, tiny things become the relationship. So you say, I've noticed this has happened more than once. Calmly, no performance, no emotional explosion, just a quiet observation. And that sentence hits hard because it tells them, I was not confused. I was paying attention. That is how to be more confident in real life, not by pretending nothing affects you, but by trusting yourself enough to say, I see what is happening. So here is the real lesson. The goal is not to make people afraid of you. The goal is to stop teaching people that disrespect has no cost, because every time you laugh off an insult you did not find funny, every time you stay quiet while someone talks down to you, every time you let someone shrink you just because you don't want tension, you send a message. And maybe you did not mean to send it, but they still received it. So from now on, send a different one. Not with hatred, not with revenge, not with some fake tough guy performance, with calm, with clarity, with self-respect. because the most respected person in the room is not always the loudest. Sometimes it is the person who can look disrespect in the face and say, "Not like that," and mean it. If this video helped you feel a little more grounded, subscribe. And if someone you know is dealing with toxic people right now, send them this video. They might not need another motivational quote. They might just need one sentence that helps them finally stand up for themselves. This is Orvian quietly becoming. I'll see you in the next video.